Hello, my dear students. Welcome, welcome. Your exams are just around the corner, I know. So let's quickly go through one of the most interesting chapters from your book, The Snake and the Mirror. It's a little bit scary, but honestly, it's mostly very, very funny. And more importantly, it's a chapter that can definitely help you score some good marks. So come on, let's dive in and master it together.
Okay, just picture this. You have a doctor, and he's looking in a mirror. A moment later, a full-blooded cobra shows up, and it also looks into the same mirror. So what happens next? I know, it sounds like the beginning of a joke, doesn't it? Well, that's the big question at the heart of the story we're exploring today.
So this whole story is actually told to us by a homeopath doctor himself. He's just chilling with his friends one evening, telling them this crazy tale. And remember the setting because it's quite important. It's a hot, sticky summer night, the perfect kind of night for a little bit of drama.
Now here is where the fun starts. Look at the huge gap between the doctor's real life and his dreams. In reality, he's living in a tiny rented room with no electricity, just a little kerosene lamp. His only friends are, well, rats. And his bank balance? A grand total of 60 rupees. But in his mind? Oh, in his mind, he's a big shot with big plans. He wants to look super handsome, grow a cool thin mustache, and always have this charming smile. And his biggest dream? To marry a rich woman doctor who must be fat. And his reason is just hilarious. He says if he ever makes a silly mistake and needs to run away, she won't be able to run fast enough to catch him. So silly, right?
The doctor was completely lost in his own little world, just admiring himself in that mirror. He'd look at his smile, fix his hair. It's a bit like how we all try to find that perfect angle for a selfie or an Instagram reel, no? He was a bachelor and a doctor, so he felt he had to make his presence felt. This vanity of his, it's a very important point. Remember that.
So, while our hero is busy daydreaming and checking himself out in the mirror, the real drama is about to begin. The entire mood is about to change. Completely.
He'd been hearing noises from the roof, but he just thought it was the usual rats. But then, suddenly,
He heard this dull thud sound, almost like a rubber tube had just fallen onto the ground. He didn't think much of it at first, but this was different. All the rats had gone quiet, so he turns around to look, and what he sees is going to change everything.
A big, fat snake had wriggled over the back of his chair and landed right on his shoulder. Then it slithered down, coiling itself tightly around his left arm. Can you even imagine the fear? The snake's hood was open, and its head was just 3 or 4 inches from his face. One tiny wrong move, and it's all over.
And in that moment, he didn't jump, he didn't scream, he didn't even shiver. There was simply no time for any of that. He was completely frozen, just sitting there like a statue made of flesh and blood. In his own words, he says, "I was turned to stone." The shock was just too much to handle.
You see, this moment shows how quickly life can make you humble. Just a minute ago, he was this proud, handsome doctor with big, fancy dreams. Now, with death just inches away, how does he see himself? As a poor, foolish, and stupid doctor. And the biggest joke of all? He's a doctor, but he has no medicine for a snakebite in his room? All that pride just vanished, and the only thing he could do was silently pray, "Oh God."
But then, something totally unbelievable happens. The doctor is saved, not by his brain, not by his strength, but by the most unexpected thing in that room. This, my students, is the climax of the story.
So the snake turns its head, and it sees its own reflection in the mirror on the table. And guess what? Just like our doctor friend a few minutes ago, the snake becomes totally fascinated. It was admiring its own beauty. The doctor even jokes that maybe the snake was also making some big decision, about growing a mustache or maybe wearing a bindi. The same vanity the doctor had is now in the snake. This is the main irony of the whole story.
So the snake, completely lost in its own reflection, unwinds itself from the doctor's arm and moves onto the table to get a better look. The second it's off him, the doctor is no longer a stone statue. He becomes a man of flesh and blood again. Without making a single sound, holding his breath, he slowly gets up from the chair, slips out the door, and then he just runs for his life.
Phew! What a relief. The doctor is safe. He runs straight to his friend's house. But the story isn't quite over yet. There's one last, very funny twist waiting for him.
So the next morning, he comes back with a few friends to finally move his things out of that scary room. But when they get there, They find the room has been cleaned out. A thief had come in the night and stolen almost everything he owned.
Can you believe it? The thief took almost everything, his coat, his shirts, his 60 rupees. But he left one thing behind, the doctor's dirty vest. The doctor finds this absolutely hilarious. He jokes that the thief must have had such a sense of cleanliness that he couldn't even touch it. It's like the final insult, and it's the last little joke of the story.
All right, so that's the story. Now for the part you've all been waiting for. Let's quickly go over some very common exam questions so you know exactly how to write the perfect answers. A very, very common question they ask is this. The story is about a frightening incident, but it's told in a humorous way. What makes it funny? So let's break down the answer for this.
To get full marks, make sure you mention these 4 key things. First, the contrast between the doctor's poor life and his big dreams. Second, the irony of the snake acting just as vain as the doctor. Third, the doctor's self-deprecation, like when he makes fun of himself by calling himself foolish and stupid. And finally, the twist at the end with the thief and that dirty vest. You write these points, and you'll have a fantastic answer, for sure.
Okay, next question. And this one is about the small details. What were the 2 important and earth-shaking decisions the doctor made while he was looking in the mirror?
And the answer is super simple. Of course, he calls them earth-shaking just to be funny. The first decision was to shave every day and grow a thin mustache. And the second was to always keep that attractive smile on his face. And why did he make these decisions? Well, to look more handsome. This really shows us how vain he was before the snake showed up.
And with that, we've covered all the key points of the snake and the mirror. But I'll leave you with one last thing to think about and discuss. Who do you think was the real star of this story? Was it the doctor, who learned a big lesson about pride? Was it the snake, whose vanity actually saved the life? Or was it the mirror, the quiet object that made everything happen? Think about it. All the very best for your exams. Until next time, bye-bye.